And do you mind if I record this so we have this recorded for posterity so we can look back if we need to?
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, definitely. Go ahead. I'll become a YouTube star someday.
You will. So how do we find those identify if someone has what their permissions are?
Okay, so first thing I see off the bat here is that, Heidi, is this your screen that we're seeing now?
I think so.
Okay. Yep, I think basically you don't. Let me see if I can increase your permissions, because I think right now the way we uploaded the employee spreadsheet, let me go double check.
Well, that's perfect. That was one of our other questions.
Yeah, only administrators have permissions, so the ability to update permissions as well as add and edit users. So let me see. First off, that's probably why you don't have a permissions group. Yeah, so looking at the spreadsheet, and actually I could share my screen because I can drive and show you all around. So why don't we just grab my screen. Hopefully this works. Like I said, my connection has been less than ideal this morning, but I'm trying to find workarounds. I live out here in rural Southwest Virginia, and our hotspot phone is actually the only way for me to use the internet, which is tough because of my job. But Verizon hotspot completely stopped working this morning, and they're working on it. They said it's a known issue, but taking a look at the spreadsheet that we imported here, everybody except for Joe and Don were imported as data entry. Only administrators will have the ability to update permissions. So that's the first angle there. And the good news is once you all have permissions set and employees entered, the only times you ever have to really mess with permissions or employee access is when you have turnover, or maybe new employees, or you decide that somebody else needs elevated permissions. So that's the first thing.
Can I suggest maybe that we make Heidi and Alex administrative level at least through the testing period, so that we have full range of motion, so to speak? What do you think, Alex and Heidi?
That would be helpful.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good idea.
Okay, so we can actually use that. It was breaking up a little bit there, so we can use this opportunity to go ahead and show you how to elevate somebody's permissions. So
as an administrator, Curtis, this is Joe.
Yeah,
as an administrator, I can do this.
Yeah, Joe, you and Don would be able to do this. You probably already have, as you can see here, the permissions group that I see, as well as this administrator tools. Really the only two big differences that administrators have right now is the ability to administer employees or users accounts, and then the permissions. Pay no attention to the county permission manager link that I have there. That's for internal. That's for me to switch around counties quickly. So first thing you would want to do is go to users, select data entry, because that's currently the group that Alex is in, as well as Heidi. So let's delete them from that group. Delete the confirmation. So now notice that they become available as options for data entry group, the ones that are not in the data entry group already. So that's okay. We're going to go back to administrators. And you'll notice that almost everybody in your organization is available, because the only administrators right now are Joe and Don. So for the time being, let's elevate Alex and Heidi. Save. So now you have 4 administrators. I would say the typical way that DHD operates, we usually have maybe 2 administrators, seems about right for your size organization. Some places are really locked down because of their internal security on who can administer and elevate permissions. So sometimes even the larger organizations might only have one or two, but certainly I can edit your permissions if you ever need to, or elevate permissions or set up things. So now that you are set up as an administrator, Heidi and Alex, you would just have to log out because permissions are set upon login intentionally, so they're stored kind of in memory. So if you logged out, Heidi, and log back in, you should see administrator tools, tool group, and the permissions tool group. Some of the other ones that you see here are only system administrator. That's me. So you guys won't even see the system admin group here. Right now, I'm the only one. Actually, what we could do, there's a couple people on my team that have been actively using it, although I don't see Hamza in there. Okay, well, that's okay. So at this point, yeah, you should see more permissions. So I guess that answers the first question. And, this is the spreadsheet we're going to use for the live system. So as long as you all are okay with only 2 administrators, certainly if you want to update that before go live, this is the spreadsheet that we'll be using. I think I sent this back to you all maybe a couple months ago.
Yes, I think this answers 2 things. Well, it does 2 things. One, it gives Heidi and Alex the power that they need to perform the full range of testing. And 2, it satisfies the question that we were trying to answer was, are users' permissions set up correctly in the system? And by virtue of the fact that Alex and Heidi could not see the permissions meant that in their user group they were set up, that's correct. Now the question is, if maybe Heidi or Alex could log off and log back in, are you able to see the tools that are now available to you? And then I think that will be great. I think that fully satisfies the question, don't you think?
Yeah.
What do you think, Heidi, Alex, and Joe and Don?
Yes, I think that at least if that is the only choices, are whether they're data entry or administrator, and that's all we have, and that's how everyone's set, then I suppose
so that's
correct.
what I was. Yeah, that's the other thing I was going to go into, is to ignore. There is actually an update on the way that should be out to the staging environment probably this week. You can see a couple of groups that were set up independent of the actual county. Alameda set up a specific group that has less permissions, and so did Santa Fe Springs, just as a test case out here. I think there are more groups created on the live site, but just ignore these 2 because there's a change that has to go to staging. And actually I'll probably check with the lady that's working on that and get that out to staging today to avoid confusion, so that you don't see these individual groups. Now, if you did want to have more limited groups, what I'd suggest is there have been some clients that decide financial should be off limits to certain groups. So you could even put in something like, you could call them the finance department, or you could do like Alameda has here. You could call somebody fire inspectors versus, content managers. You can create your own groups. So the way to do that is to add group. But what I'll caution against is wait for that enhancement or that update from the lady this week to get out there. So as it is right now, I don't want you to really edit some of these other permissions, because we have a flaw there on staging where you're seeing groups that you shouldn't.
I imagine we'll probably remove the permissions we've got right now. So in the interest of time, we only have we're already almost 15 minutes in. Can I go ahead and move on to the next item?
Okay.
Great. So the next item was, Curtis, we were trying to work on the category, are you able to create and edit inspections? And there was, one of the items was, are users able to generate and deliver inspection reports to businesses? And we've got hung up on the inspection addendum. We don't understand exactly how that works. Maybe you could tell us a little bit.
Okay. Yeah, so let me bring up, and is this more from, I would say when it comes to the inspection addendum, it's going to be more of a Coupa specific thing rather than fire. So maybe I should, instead of going to a fire high-rise as the inspection example, let's try to pick, let me get my GoToMeeting window out of here so I can see. Come on. All right, I'm going to try to keep going. The GoToMeeting window is like right in my way here. I can't go around it. Okay. Let's see. Actually, maybe this will be a good example because notice it's for the same facility and the same date, right? So we did one that was fire and one that was HMBP. Probably not a great example. I don't know if the Coupa staff goes out at the same time as the fire staff. Maybe unrealistic, but more realistically is that the Coupa staff would conduct the HMBP inspection along with the other programs or inspection types that they do. So if they did a CalARP and a UST and an APSA HMPP hazmat, if they did all of the programs, most likely the way most of our jurisdictions work is they would conduct the inspection on the same date for the same facility. So the way the addendum works, and you could actually refer to it as the consolidated inspection report, or Alameda actually requested maybe we should call it something different, because addendum really means, you know, at the end of the stuff, but they refer to it more as a violation summary. So if you had multiple inspection types on the same day, this violation summary or consolidated inspection report would show you all of the violations for each different program. So as you can see here, again, my go-to window is right in the wrong spot here. We did a hazmat business plan routine inspection, but we also did a fire inspection the same day. So a lot of times the regulators, the Coupas, decide to send out only this addendum report because the Coupa, some of the Coupa inspections are like 200 items long, and they don't really want the businesses to have to fiddle with looking through the 199 items that they did correctly. They just want to show them the one that they did incorrectly and how to fix it. So a lot of them just use this version. But
Alex,
I'm also finding.
I was going to ask Alex what he thinks for us, whether, I mean, I think this is incredibly useful, but Alex, does the county, are they okay with our violations being, I think it's more customer service friendly, but are they okay with our notices, like fire corrections being on the same violation notice as any Coupa program corrections?
Yeah, and speaking with them last week, I asked that question because we, right now for a UST, when I do an inspection and I have CFC violations, the question was whether or not we can have both the UST, the SIRS violations and CFC on the same form. And they said that was okay, so long as we were only applying, obviously, adding in the violations into SIRS. So I don't think it's an issue of having notice of violation with having both fire and a Coupa violation on the same form. That's my understanding.
Okay, great. Well, I think we'll probably end up using this quite a bit then.
Yeah, because currently I'm doing HMBP and USC inspections on the same day. So having one form for both is a good idea.
Yeah, so you could have like HMBP, UST, and fire, routine, like under all in one report.
Yep.
That's great. All right.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I was thinking maybe the better terminology is not to call it addendum, but violation summary or, consolidated, something like that. But we actually think maybe there will be some more options because of the more fire-centric implementations that we're doing. Maybe there's should be a a fourth option here that says something like, you know, all Coupa or all fire or something like that. Kind of similar to what we have if you look at the facility and how you print permits. We give you a lot of options on grouping Coupa permits together, potentially all Coupa non-UST or all fire. So there's some options there. But to show you the other, you know, other inspection options, that's the inspection addendum, or like I said, violation summary. But there's also the checklist, which is the full, you know, all of the items individually, or I'm sorry, checklist. But then there's also the full, which is both of them. So you'll see here that we have the consolidated or addendum report. But then if you scroll down, you also get the checklist. So I'm finding that a lot of the Coupas decide to do this because it gives them not only all of the violations, and the business could just look over that, but if they want to be more specific and see, you know, which ones were in compliance or out, or even what items they were checking, then they have the checklist report as well. And notice that that means that you see the hazmat business plan inspection and all of their items, but you also get to see the fire inspection and all of those checklist items. So I'm finding that I think hardly any of them send out just the checklist, because that doesn't make sense. You know, you need to see the violations. So I think it's kind of half and half between the addendum and the full are the two options that people are using for the most part, or users.
Great. So are we satisfied now that we understand enough about the inspection addendum, aka the
Violation summary or consolidated, whatever you want to call it.
Now it makes sense, yes.
Great, great. Thank you. So the next one was the addendum. We had a question about the inspection addendum. Is it possible to add a submit button at the top of the inspection report input page? I found that we had to scrolling all the way down to hit the submit button was inconvenient.
So I've got a better trick for you. Notice this little icon here. Hopefully you can see my cursor highlight circle going. Everybody see that down arrow?
Yeah.
Click on that and it immediately takes you to the bottom of the page. Click on the one above it or next to it there, and it takes you back to the top. So real quick, navigate up and down using those two.
That's great. Great. Let me add a little note here. Great. Another question note we had here was how to adjust corrective action status and log a signature from a new inspector or on a re-inspection. Right, because remember that, isn't that Heidi and Alex? We couldn't if we swapped inspectors, right?
Right. If a new inspector went and conducted a follow-up, how would we get another signature from the next inspector? I mean, is it based off of them opening up on their computer and now has their signature in there?
So if we're doing a follow-up inspection, remember that a follow-up inspection is independent of the previous inspection. So you would actually want to add new inspection. Let's say it was a follow-up to, again, my window is right in the way. Okay, there we go, HMBP. We're going to do a follow-up to this, and you could, you know, if you start using the inspector scheduler, you're probably driving through that to find the ones that need follow-ups. But let's just say in theory this was one place that needed a reinspection, and I'm going to say that Alex is doing the reinspection. Now, the only difference between it and a routine inspection is you've selected reinspection. If you had an out violation on the previous and you clicked out, there's a good example. It automatically populates that as a repeat, and you can see that the last time we were out on May, there was an observation that was out of compliance. They had to correct by June. Didn't happen. Here we're finally doing our follow-up on this. So this is a good example of we're doing the follow-up. Item number 1 is still out of compliance. So now we get down, maybe you will need to do yet another follow-up, but let's say that you don't in theory here. Now you've got a new inspector. Alex is on this one. It used to be somebody else on the previous routine. So if you have a tablet or device where you can sign on it, certainly do that. Or if you have a signature already in the employee manager, which I would suggest for you all, because not everybody uses tablets that are have stylus and a good way to sign things. So I know I'm probably terrible here with my mouse to be able to do something. So if I was giving you a suggestion, it would be find an administrator, log into the employee manager, and I'll show you that next, and sign there. That way inspectors don't have to sign every time. But it's up to you all from a business standpoint. If you make them sign here, it'll take this signature on the printable. If you don't sign as an inspector, it'll take it from the employee manager. And you, in theory, have your signature of your facility. We'll hit submit. Let's go take a look at the addendum. So what we can see now is, see this big blank area, that means that Alex has not signed it either on the inspection record itself or in the employee manager. So to do that, I won't go mess with his account, but what we do as administrators, again, you're the ones that could get into the employee records. Maybe what you do right after is an action item, right after go live, is to have everybody go in and populate their signatures if you want to use that approach, and go in there. Disregard a few of the fields that I see up here as a system administrator, but you could go in here, sign it once, and then this one would show up on the printable report. Hopefully the screen's refreshing fast enough for you all to see that. So then you hit submit there, and that would be done. I'll clear it out because I don't want to mess with Alex's signature. But once you sign that and hit submit here, then you've got a signature in the tied to the user, so the inspector won't have to sign it every time. But you could also sign it individually here, like we saw. Submit.
So we have about 5 minutes remaining on the half hour. We have one more question, but have we answered this? Do we know now how to add another inspector? I'm not quite sure. Alex and Heidi?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Sorry, Don. Yes, I think so.
Great. I'm just making a little note there. And again, Curtis, thank you so much for joining us this morning to do this. We have just one more question from our session yesterday. This was regarding, does the completion of an inspection correctly schedule the next inspection due date? We were not sure how that is, how you set that up.
Okay, so I'll show you the couple of elements involved with this. It really only comes down to about 3 different things to show you. And my screen takes a little while to load because it's loading for all of your, whatever it is, 10 inspectors or whatever. But if you come into this inspector workload or inspector scheduler, it'll default to only your assigned facility. So while I'm waiting for this to load, I'm going to open the facility manager in a new tab. That way I can wait on that one to load. Again, my connection is really slow this morning. It's taking a long time for all the pages to load, especially sharing the GoToMeeting. So bear with me. Actually, while that's loading, I'm going to get everything up and going here to show you all the elements. The other element that's involved here is what does the facility participate in as far as programs. And the way we have the inspection intervals set up is they're tied to a fee schedule. So it's not tied to a particular program, even though probably across the board, when it comes to Coupa stuff, UST is every 1 year, everything else is every 3. When it comes to fire, maybe everything's every 1 year. For most of the California fire departments that I've dealt with, it seems like it's a yearly thing, but there could be maybe, you know, in our environmental health world, some of them are every 6 months or other weird intervals. So the way we set up, go ahead.
Sorry, Curtis. What we were trying to attempt was if we write a violation and let's say we gave them, you know, 20 days to correct that, we couldn't figure that out, not necessarily the reoccurring annual or triannual,
Okay.
but the follow-up to a violation notice.
Okay. So that's a different kind of thing. If you all want me to, I can go through the scheduling real quick first, and then we can jump into the correct by type of thing. So I'll go super quick here. One of the things from the inspection interval that is, you're not going to make, this is not going to be real testable for you all right now because you don't have your fees in. But you need to get, you know, all the programs and fees loaded into the system. And once you do, then we tie those to your programs and permits they participate in, and we set up the inspection intervals that way. So everything that's HMBP would be set up 3 years. Everything that's fire could be 1 year. But again, you don't have the fees in there. So there's only 2 examples out there that, and I think one's a HMBP and one's a spray booth. So you're not actually going to get to see the scheduling work really well because there's only 2 examples. So that's number 1, I'd get that up and going. Number 2, inspection assignments. You can actually make assignments from the facility manager. That's where I would suggest that you make it on a mass basis. Maybe it's based on program. I'll show you the field that ties to. Everybody okay? I know it's 11 o'clock. I'm okay with a little bit longer.
I have a meeting starting at 9:15, so I'll have to drop off at 9:10. I'm sorry,
Okay, I'll go as fast as
8:10
possible here.
That's just
this
because I have
is
to
the
use
field
same
that
go-to.
drives.
Go ahead.
Okay, this is the field that drives the workload. So you would see assignments for you if you were assigned to this facility. So what I would suggest, again, I wanted to show you the field, but the way almost all of them, I'm sure, are using this is on a mass basis. They say everybody that's got, oh, we got a specialized inspector that only does CalARP. So let's take all CalARP, all 6 of these need to get assigned to Alex because he's our specialist on CalARP. I don't know if that's true, but let's say it is. And you guys can mess with this and update it if you want. Now he's the inspector assigned to all 6 of these facilities. So when we start cycling through CalARP inspections, he's going to be the one that gets those showing up on his inspector assignments here. So right now you don't have anything, you haven't started out your cycles. I don't know like how you all want to decide on doing things to get you up and going. You know, you haven't had a chance to cycle through using DHD yet. I don't think we have inspections as part of anything that we're importing as part of the data conversion. If we are, then that would be the way to get initial due dates set up. But on an individual basis, you could go in and set up, schedule some due dates like that CalARP that we're just talking about. Let's decide that he wants to go in and update the scheduled due date for that just that first time. Really, after you start cycling through DHD and using it, you shouldn't ever have to mess with this field again. The next inspection is set automatically. But if you need to use it to get initial setup going, you can set up those dates. I guess I won't update a bunch of your stuff because I don't want to mess with your data too much. But if you have that next inspection due date, that'll show up on the scheduler, and that would show up for him now that he's assigned all of those facilities. So that's what's involved in the cycle. The CalARP inspection, they participate in the CalARP program, you would see a due date on that. You could knock out, it should cycle through once you do the CalARP inspection. It should have another one set up for 3 years from whatever the inspection date is. So I know we have not too much time, so is that good with everybody as far as the scheduling? So
Yeah,
big
it'll
things
take a
there
little
is,
practice, but that helps.
yep. Big things there are get your fee schedule loaded, and you know, if you want to do it based on inspector assigned, you can certainly just say no assignment or any user, and you can do other things to search. But if you want the inspector assigned set up, then I would go into the facility level and start making some assignments just so that you can see. And I don't know if, you know, if it's a, here's the other thing that I think you guys are running into is that we have assignments at the facility level. There have been a few Coupas that say they want assignments at the program level because they participate in fire, and that's a completely different person that does that as opposed to UST. So there may be an enhancement, and probably in 2020, I would think, maybe 2021, but I would guess that sometime this year we'll actually have assignments at the program level as well that'll overwrite what's at the facility level. You could still do it at the facility level, but if you had specialty programs, then you could do it at the program level as well. So that's probably in the next few months.
All right. Great. Are we?
And here's the.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, if that's everybody's good with the scheduling, then I can jump real quick over to the correct by stuff that we were.
Yeah,
Sure.
That he was mentioning.
yeah, I'm good.
All right. Once you've got those violations in the system, you can go look at the violations by going to the inspection that had the violations, or you can go to the violation correction queue. And there will be a fair amount of your daily activity that I think you all will get into that has to do with the violation correction queue. For me, nothing comes up right now because I'm not actually in this drop down, but by default, this tool will only list the ones that are for your assignment. Basically, you're either the inspector assigned or the inspector that conducted the inspection. So you can see here that we've done a bunch of violations. Looks like Alex was the inspector on those. So now he's got a class 2 violation here that the business sent in a, they have a correct by of October, but they finally got their stuff and sent it off to Alex on an email somewhere. You could correct multiple things from this home screen, and you could say the return to compliance date was today and they documented it, or on a singular basis. Let's just say they corrected only one item, and that's this one. So on a singular basis, you could go in here, say the correct by was today. They documented something. Let's just hit. So return to compliance actually would send it off to SIRS right now. Obviously, that's failing because that's part of that tier 3 stuff. Or I can't. Is this reinspection? So someday that'll be a green. But for right now, it sends off the return to compliance request for data off to SIRS. But then let's say you did find documentation. So your documentation was, I don't know, whatever file, you've got. You could upload a picture of the documentation, or maybe they sent you a business plan or something like that. You could attach it to this individual violation. So there's a few ways to get to that, though. It's from that inspection that we saw. You'll see all the violations related to this inspection in the panel next to the inspection, or you go to the facility, you'll see a related data panel for the violation correction queue of all outstanding. Notice this place still has 15 outstanding violations that need to be corrected. So it's the ones that are already corrected don't show up in the panel from the facility side. and that's intentional to make sure you don't see hundreds, just the ones that are outstanding, but you will see all of them from the inspection. So again, violation correction queue, you actually will get a nightly, or a weekly email. It'll be sent, in this case, Alex would get, however many he's the inspector assigned for. Not inspector assigned, inspector. Okay, so these 13, let me do this, would be the ones that he gets. You can actually email from here as well. So this would be the same email that he would get on Sunday night, I believe it is. You could mimic it here from the homepage as well and email all of those. So Alex will probably get an email and it'll look kind of like this. 13 records that are outstanding for him. So anyway, does that help you all through the process? Now, if a place end up, you actually have to issue a notice of violation, or somebody didn't correct it in time, maybe the next part of that whole process is to add an enforcement. Hopefully the screen's refreshing fast enough here. I'm trying to go quick through this. You need to actually add an enforcement that they didn't correct these two in time or something like that. You're going to issue a notice of violation. Again, you guys can jump over this on a recording if I'm going too fast. View the notice. Here it is with the two of them that they didn't correct. And if your signature was in the system, show those up. You could email that to the place if you needed to. So that's kind of the process that's out there. Any
Thank you.
questions on that?
Yeah, Curtis, does anyone have any questions for Curtis? No?
No,
Curtis,
thanks, Curtis, and we can watch the video. Thank you.
Curtis is very, very helpful. Thank you so much for meeting with us this morning. I was wondering, given that
Sure.
tomorrow is our deadline to get the SIRS testing done, would you be able, if you're free, could I send you an invite for our meeting tomorrow morning? I'm sure we'll have more questions in the morning.
I do have, I think it's an 11:30 tomorrow, which 11:30 my time is almost about now, your time, but that's for tomorrow. Let's see what else I have. You can send me the invite and I'll look over my calendar. I do have, actually, I got a couple things in the morning for 7 o'clock your time, and then another one at 11:30, which would be 8:30 your time.
Oh, okay. So our meeting
So
is 7:30 to 7:45. It's just meant to be 15 minutes our time. 7:30, 8:30, 9:30. That'd be 10:30 to 10:45 your time.
10:30, I'll still be on a 10 till 11 phone call tomorrow.
Oh,
So unfortunately, not available for that.
oh, okay. Do you have any time tomorrow in any free like half-hour slots? Like how about 12? Like I'm sorry, team. I'm involved. How about 12:30 to 1?
We do have
You
we
know,
do have a 4:30 call scheduled with you all for tomorrow, which is 1:30 your time.
That's true. That's our usual team meeting. Maybe we can use that to go over just exactly what we're doing now as well.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
I'm going to
maybe
have a question on how to get to the report 6 and then the blue form kind of. I do want to test those out. So I don't know how to navigate to them.
Why don't we do that? Why don't we continue? Yeah, and so city team, we're going to be doing our meeting this afternoon to continue our testing, and then we'll meet again with Curtis tomorrow at our usual meeting time. Does that sound good then?
Sure.
Take up Alex's question too.
So just as a one I can probably answer in 1 minute right now, the blue form is not completed at this point. It's part of some future development. So there is an issue in the system for that line item. So not completed yet.
Great. And the last time, before I have to run to, is fees. It doesn't feel like we're really doing the full testing until we get the fees in there. What more do we need to do to get the fees into the system?
So I think the last time we spoke about it, Heidi was gonna, and everybody, I think, because it was all the programs, we're gonna revisit the spreadsheet. I think as it was given to us the most recent time, it didn't have enough on the permitting side of things. And remember that's where that whole discussion about it's actually a permit subtype. Think of it as a permit subtype rather than something, even if you don't bill for it, you still want to have your numbers and your counts correctly for the county when it comes to that. So think of it as permit subtype and just load in all the different things that the county might also be billing for, all the different segments and divisions of kind of sub-programs that you all have.
All right. And I'm so sorry, I have run up against the wall. I have to go fire up the next meeting. Thank you so much, Curtis, for joining us this morning. We do appreciate it so much. And team, I'll see all of you this afternoon at 3:30.
Sounds good.
All right, thanks everybody.
Curtis.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.